Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one. Welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles. I feel like I've seen the name of today's hero before, Ace Trigger 07 in the Tier 10 US Navy battleship, the USS Ohio. If this guy's been featured in a video before and you can remember what it was, please feel free to let me know in the comments. I feel like the name's familiar, but I can't quite place it. Anyway, Tier 10 battle, domination mode here on the trap map. Well, I say Tier 10, I mean it technically is. Both sides have one super ship. In fact, they've both got the same super ship, the Japanese Yamagiri destroyer. There's also a couple of Tier 9s in each team. Let's see. Ace's team have the Jean Bart Black and an Alaska. Yeah, that's fine. The enemy team have an Iwami. It might be a bit rough for the Rune, but at least no Tier 8s are unfortunate enough to have been dragged into this matchmaking. I'm not even sure if Tier 8s can get into matches with super ships. Again, if anybody knows, feel free to educate us all in the comments. So, the USS Ohio, Tier 10 battleship. Technically a premium, I suppose. But you unlock this thing by grinding it out in the Research Bureau, which involves essentially unlearning and then relearning existing ship lines to earn research points. And it's a good ship. It's in fact a very good ship. I don't have it because I've never done the Research Bureau. But I'm kind of tempted, because if there was a ship that could tempt me to do it, to basically regrind an existing ship line, I think this would probably be it. The Ohio is armed with 8 457mm or 18-inch guns. Now, they're not the 18.1-inch guns that the Yamato and the Musashi gets, and that's significant. Because while those ships have sufficiently high caliber armor-piercing shells to be able to smash through the typical 32mm plating that is found on most Tier 8, 9 and 10 battleships. Well, that was an unfortunate opening salvo and an extremely lucky Yoshino, because 80... Oof! Oh, wow, he just got clapped. Sorry, where was I? Oh, yes. While the armor-piercing shells on the Ohio cannot overmatch the 32mm plating that you find on most Tier 8, 9 and 10 battleships, it can overmatch the 30mm plating that you find on even the toughest of cruisers, with some notable exceptions, which are mostly Russian, ships like the Moskva or the Stalingrad. But generally speaking, this thing is absolutely lethal against enemy cruisers. And battleships should watch out too, because just because these guns can't overmatch 32mm battleship plating, that doesn't mean you want to be giving broadside, or you will get spanked. The other good thing about the Ohio, actually there are several other good things about the Ohio, it's got really good secondaries. I mean, it's basically equivalent to the legendarily good USS Massachusetts at Tier 8. Also, the gun's very accurate, because it can equip the Artillery Plotting Room mod too. I mean, just look at the tight grouping. I mean, yeah, okay, he missed the Yamagiri. It was going full tilt with its engine boost running, he just didn't give it enough lead. But the grouping of the shots was very tight. Finally, on paper, the repair party consumable is not quite as good as the one found on the USS Montana. The Montana's repair party heals, I think it's 0.66% of the ship's maximum health per second. The Ohio's only heals 0.5%, but it only has a 40-second cooldown, which means, unlike the Montana, the Ohio is more easily, or perhaps easily isn't the right word, but it is certainly more able to deal with sustained incoming fire, particularly sustained incoming high explosive fire, than its sister ship, the Montana. Oh, this could hurt. He's turning in, he knows the trouble he's in, but, well, you can't angle against... yeah. No citadels, he was fortunate, but he still got clapped. Honestly, the Rune is just way too fragile a cruiser to be taking the front line in any matchmaking, even if it's top tier. I don't know if the Rune is the most fragile heavy cruiser in the game, but it's certainly in the top 5. Oh yeah, another great thing about the Ohio, yep, there's his first kill, the exceptionally fast reload on these 18-inch guns. I mean, comparatively speaking, it's still a battleship, it still has a slow reload, but the base reload is only 27.5 seconds, and obviously with various different commander skills and equipment fits, you can get that down even further, and that's even before the adrenaline rush skill kicks in. Is there anything particularly bad about the Ohio? Oh yeah. Huge target, terrible concealment, slower than the Montana by 2 knots. She's only half a knot faster than the Yamato. Exposed citadel, very thin citadel roof, and a monstrously large turning circle, which makes her very vulnerable to torpedoes. Oh, and high explosive ammunition is just garbage. The only time you should ever really need to use it is if you're facing a particularly stubborn battleship that refuses to face you in any aspect other than completely nose in. And even then, you're probably better using the armor-piercing shells to try to just smash its gun turrets. Now, Ace hasn't had a particularly impressive game yet, but it's still early days, and 46,000 damage and 1 kill isn't nothing. And the team have managed to pull an early lead, thanks to taking 2 of the cap circles and scoring 1 extra kill over the enemy. However, it's at this point where everything does start to go just a little bit pear-shaped. Thanks to the presence of the Yamagiri, backed up by 2 battleships, the enemy team have stubbornly held on to the cap circle at Charlie. There's some destroyer support arriving now, but it might be a case of too little too late. The Shimakaze's asking for support, but somebody up there was running radar, which probably means that Shimakaze could be in a lot of trouble very, very soon. And it's not the USS Des Moines on the enemy team, because he's all the way down at Cap Circle Alpha, and the threat of his radar is what's keeping the friendly Hayate out of the cap circle down there to the southwest, forcing the Jingles.B to tuck in behind an island and contest the cap and prevent the enemy team from taking it. The fact that the Des Moines is down there and there was radar up here must mean that the enemy Yu Yang, as well as the Yamagiri, are up here at Cap Circle Charlie, which could be exceptionally bad news for the friendly Shimakaze. It looks like he's realised and he's backing off. And also obviously explains why neither Ace nor his division mate in the Hindenburg were anxious to push into a cap circle dominated by 2 enemy destroyers backed up by 2 enemy battleships. Now, I'm not sure if the Shimakaze just realised that he's no use to the team alive hiding in a smoke screen and not doing any spotting, but it's more likely that the Yu Yang's radar just came off cooldown. Yep, Shimakaze's dead. Smart move there from the Yu Yang. Fire up the radar, charge the smoke screen. The Shimakaze couldn't see anything in the smoke. Smoke screens work both ways. Got himself rushed and smashed by the Yu Yang, probably also shot at by the Yamagiri, and definitely the 2 enemy battleships up there. However, in some good news, the team have at least managed to retain control of the other 2 cap circles. At least they've retained control of Alpha, thanks to the Jingles.B pushing in. But some sneaky little bugger on the enemy team has just pushed into the cap circle at Bravo, and that's probably going to be the Yamagiri. Now would be a fantastic time for the friendly Moskva down there to use his radar. The Jingles.B's just gone down. Oh, this is not great. The Moskva did use his radar, but it didn't reveal the Yamagiri, and he has taken out the Yu Yang. But not before the Yu Yang managed to get its deep water torpedoes away. And of course, because the deep water torpedoes, unless somebody's running hydro, you get basically no warning of them until they're about to hit, which is going to be really bad news for somebody, and it was the Moskva. Bourgogne and Grosser first, popping out cover in order to push south, presumably to back up the Yamagiri, who has to be the one who's about to flip that central cap at Bravo. Ace manages to score some decent hits on the Grosser first, and then the friendly Conqueror equalises the kills by taking out the Iwami. Ace manages to weather the return salvo from the Grosser first over there, which of course lights him up again, and Ace's reload is a lot faster than the Grosser first. Still giving broadside. Oof! That was a bit of a paddling. 23,000 damage. High-tier German battleships, very difficult to citadel, particularly the closer you get to them. But that doesn't mean they're immune to armor-piercing damage. Right, there's the Yamagiri. He has flipped the cap, and it looks like he's now coming up to back up these 2 battleships. That's unfortunate. because now would be a great time. You can see some crossfire coming in there from the Hindenburg as well. 8-inch armour piercing, and the enemy ships returning fire. Now would have been a good time for them to take advantage of this and get into the cap at Charlie. And they can still do that, but unfortunately with the Yamagiri coming back, it's going to make it very, very dangerous. But if they can get into that cap at Charlie, well, not only does it give the team a much-needed cap circle, but it also puts them into a position where they can start cross-firing spotted enemy ships down to the south. Now that's going to rely on the rest of the team being able to hold their positions and keep the enemy ships there, but, well, if the enemy ships are winning, there's no reason for them to push any further north. That doesn't mean they won't, but generally speaking, when you've got a 100-point lead and you hold, well, at the moment 2 out of the 3 cap circles, and more importantly your opponents don't have any, that's usually, and it does depend on the individual circumstances in the battle, but it's usually when you can afford to chill out and let the team that's losing take the risks and make the mistakes. Now, Ace saw the Yamagiri coming. He's preloaded the high explosive. But the Yamagiri also saw him coming and isn't going to fall for that old gag. There's his smoke screen, which probably means there are torpedoes on the way. So he's switching back to the armour piercing. But his initial setup to try to clap the Yu Yang with high explosive has left him horribly exposed to the Bourgogne over there. And he starts turning. Honestly, he left the turn a little bit too late. But either way, he cannot complete the turn now thanks to the second wave and third wave of Yu Yang torpedoes. But look at this torpedo dodge. I mean, that's just beautiful. Even better, it's left him turning the right way and angling the right way to mitigate the damage from any further armour piercing salvos from the Bourgogne. That's the only good news on the table for Ace at this precise moment, because with the loss of the friendly Yamagiri and the fact that they still don't have any cap circles, they were momentarily 2 kills and 350 points behind, although the friendly Yamagiri torpedoing and sinking the enemy Vermont has at least mitigated that a little. He's in a position to get a decent shot off, at least with his front turrets against the Bourgogne, but the fact that he is now hydroed tells us that the Grosser Kurfürst is uncomfortably close. We know he's on the other side of that island, but the fact that the hydro is now spotting Ace probably means that the Grosser Kurfürst is going to try and poke out and try his luck. He's got the island between himself and the Yu Yang, so he probably doesn't need to worry about any torpedoes. But the Bourgogne's guns do still hurt. The question is, what is the Grosser Kurfürst up to? The Bourgogne's been worked over by the Hindenburg, who might be able to handle him by himself. There's the Grosser Kurfürst. He's shooting at the Hindenburg. Right. Oh yeah. Rear turrets. Shots out. Not enough to finish him. But the front turrets are about to reload after shooting at the Bourgogne. Can he beat the Grosser Kurfürst's turret rotation and reload? Well, with the 27.5 second base reload, yes, he absolutely can. There goes the Grosser Kurfürst. He had a double fire there set by the Grosser Kurfürst secondaries, uses the damage control. Rear turrets are about ready to go again. Shots out at the Bourgogne. This is probably going to be another kill. Oh, there's the Yamagiri. Well, there's the kill on the Bourgogne, so that's good, but there's the Yamagiri. That's not good. His torpedoes, however, were aimed at the Hindenburg, not Ace in the Ohio. So that's actually, well, that makes sense, because the Hindenburg's hydro is right now the bigger threat. Yep, they were aimed at the Hindenburg. Although, I don't think it would have made any difference. Because, well, the Hindenburg wasn't even running his hydro, it must have been on cooldown, and the Yamagiri is just now too close. If the Hindenburg doesn't get him, Ace's secondaries will. Right. You could be forgiven for thinking that things were suddenly now going well, but, well, they're not. Because despite smashing absolutely everything up at this northeastern end of the map, the enemy team are doing an excellent job of smashing everything else, everywhere else, with the exception of the lone surviving Hayate down there, who's having a game attempt at flipping that central cap at Bravo. And they need every cap they can get their hands on, because they're 400 points behind. Now, they're going to be able to take the cap here at Charlie with no opposition, but the Hayate needs to stay alive and take that central cap at Bravo. There's no Yu Yang for the Hayate over there to worry about, so at least he doesn't have to be concerned about getting radared. And thanks to the momentary spot on the enemy Shimakaze, he at least knows where his biggest threat is approaching from. And it does look like he's not dumb enough to be sitting inside that smokescreen while flipping the cap, and he's heading away from where the Shimakaze was spotted. So good job to the Hayate player. Ace, and the cruiser that I've just realised is not the Hindenburg he was divisioned up with, because the Hindenburg's been dead for some time now. It is in fact the Spanish tier 10 cruiser, the Castilla, which means that the Yamagiri that they just killed probably didn't have to worry about any Hindenburg hydro. Doesn't matter. Although I realise I've made my discovery way too late to prevent anybody from furiously typing into the comments, Jingles, you dumbass, the Hindenburg's dead, but whatever. What's important is that Ace and whichever cruiser is with him have now flipped this cap at Charlie, and the Hayate has flipped the central cap at Bravo. Unfortunately, the Hayate cannot hold on to that central cap at Bravo because he gets outspotted by the Shimakaze, and the Hayate needs to stay alive. So he's been forced to abandon it. The Shimakaze is now in there flipping it, and they are now nearly 500 points behind. And with less than 5 minutes remaining, even if they'd been able to hold on to 2 caps, and thanks to the end of Shimakaze, they can't, probably still wouldn't have been enough for them to win on points. They now need kills. And it's here where we realise just how dangerous the enemy Shimakaze captain is. Because it's a Shimakaze that knows when to use his guns, which is extremely bad news for the Hayate. And when Ace's team need a kill, it's the enemy team who go ahead. This is not good news. You know what else is not good news? I mean, aside from the fact that Ace now has a Shimakaze to worry about, who's just retaken the central cap at Bravo and has no destroyer support of his own, Ace has just come across the Yamato that would not die. When he first caught sight of that Yamato after finishing off the Bourgogne, the Yamagiri and the Grosser Curve first, as it was rounding the island down to the south, it had 7,500 hit points. He has since hit it 3 times with 18-inch armor-piercing shells. And it's not dead. Doesn't have a lot of hit points. I think he managed to get it down to about 2,500. Oh, Shimakaze torpedoes. Oh, this is going to be bad. The Castilla. Yeah. Actually, this might not be that bad. There's the Yamato. Okay. More shots out while he's manoeuvring to avoid then another beautiful torpedo dodge. But watch this Yamato. Remember, he's already hit it 3 times. 2,244 health. Any one penetration from an 18-inch armor-piercing shell will be enough to kill it. And he gets a ricochet. Yamato returns fire. And the Yamato has some very spicy guns, but he was reasonably well angled. The Yamato is now inside secondary range. Ace unleashes everything at the Yamato. Any one penetration will be enough to sink it. And he gets 2 non-penetrations and 3 ricochets. But the secondaries are starting to do damage. Can he leave the Yamato to the secondaries? He set a fire. It's now on less than 1,000 hit points. Oof, that was a nasty return salvo. But he has to assist the Castilla against the Smolensk. So, leaving the Yamato to the attention of the secondaries, and he gets the Smolensk. But the secondaries on the other side just saw the Shimakaze. And the Yamato is still not dead. He's hit that thing 8 times with 18-inch armor piercing, and it just won't die. Finally! It took 11 hits with 18-inch armor piercing shells to take out a Yamato on 2,500 health. But now it's just the Shimakaze, and they're flipping the cap at Bravo. And then the Shimakaze manages to find the Castilla with a torpedo. So now it's just him and the Shimmer, and this is the nightmare situation, isn't it? Because if the Shimmer is even remotely capable of thinking and breathing at the same time, there is no way he's going to lose a fight to a battleship. The Ohio doesn't have hydro, it obviously doesn't have radar. I think the Borodino's the Borodino and the Missouri, I think, are the only 2 battleships in the game that actually have radar, but basically, well, I might be wrong, there might be 1 or 2 more, but he knows the Ohio doesn't have it. But the Shimakaze doesn't even need to kill him now. Ace could have all 3 of the cap circles. With less than a minute to go, that's not enough to make up a 500-point lead. He's preloaded the high explosive. There goes his spotter plane. He's clearly hoping that the Shimakaze hasn't turned off his AA guns and secondaries, and he's looking for the 25mm tracer. But we're dealing with a Shimakaze captain here who understands when to use his guns against low-health destroyers. He's not going to fall for this old gag. We're once again in the situation where it's Ace who has to make the mistakes. It's Ace who has to take the chances. Or he has to pray that he's dealing with a Shimakaze captain who's dumb enough to make a really stupid mistake in the dying seconds of the match. And unfortunately, this is not an episode of A Game of Throws. I mean, he did everything he possibly could. 6 kills, Kraken Unleashed, 200,000 damage done. Nearly 1 million credits earned. And it just wasn't enough. I think I can safely say that my keyboard would have gone through one of my monitors at this point. But, you know, credit where credit's due. Well done. Well done to the Shimakaze for not trying to win any harder than he already was. It's just a shame that after giving a performance like this, Ace just had the extreme misfortune to be dealing with a Shimakaze player who was capable of thinking and breathing at the same time. In fact, it's actually worse than that. Normally, when you're looking at a heartbreaker like this, the best player on the losing team has earned more than 1,000 base experience on a defeat. In this battle, the top 5 best players on the losing team earned more than 1,000 base experience on a defeat, and the next 2 after them earned more than 900. I mean, this was a close match. It wasn't really down to any one player, except arguably the enemy Shimakaze. But even he didn't earn as much base experience as the Yamato that just wouldn't die. This was just a tough match for all involved. Commiserations to Ace, though. I mean, it really sucks to put in a performance like that and still lose. But it's like I always say, if you can't take a joke, you shouldn't be playing a wargaming title. And I hope you all enjoyed watching him suffer, because that's it for today. Thanks again, Ace, and as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.